Today we are chatting with Agustin, co-founder of POL Finance and a PhD candidate who's deep into Web3 and finance. Our co-host Aditya, who works as DevRel at Gear Foundation, is here too. We will talk about building Web3 solutions, working with communities, and what's next for the space. Let's jump in. Agustin, you have done so much from teaching maths to starting POL Finance. Can you tell us about your life before Web3?
First of all, thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure to be here. Well, actually, my love for maths started in secondary school. So first of all, I started astronomy, but it was kind of far away from my house. So I decided to study mathematics. And I found it awesome, stylish, and beautiful, right? It's hard to understand, but it's, once you get it, it's really a really useful language and tool at the end. So I basically did my master, and then I did my PhD. I'm a PhD in mathematics. Basically, I developed price models. So yeah, the idea is to simulate how an asset price moves, right? In crypto is kind of more complicated because there is more volatility, which is how often and how big is the magnitude of a change from one day to another day or from 1 second to another second. And also what I did was models to study how traders behave in a liquidity pool, which is basically one of the places in the decentralized ecosystem in which you can exchange one asset for another one in a brief sense. And how I entered into blockchain was because of my first. So I have a background also in quantitative finance, which is basically the developing of investment strategies using mathematics, applied mathematics. So I started working for a digital bank in Argentina, in which we study these liquidity pools in order to improve the shield farming strategies they were using. And after that, I worked developing a protocol from India, just helping them building the product from the mathematical. Something that happened to me is that basically after the Luna crash, I don't know if you remember the Terra Luna crash. Well, that was a bad experience to me because I lost my job because the company have some investment there, so they use money, so they have to let go a lot of people, me among them. So with my partner, the founder of POL, we said, hey, why don't we offer a review, a kind of an audit of these protocols? Because basically the problem of Luna was that they were ensuring that their stablecoin was stable using as a back asset their own token. So this has this value $1 because I have this amount of Luna as a reserve. That makes sense as long as people want Luna. The price of Luna is high enough. But if the price of Luna crashes, your stablecoin will lose the peg. So you don't have to be a mathematician to realize that. So we said, why we don't offer an audit or revision or some kind of review on the protocol white paper? And we started doing that in POL. At the beginning in POL was that, revising, reviewing your protocol design. Eventually, what happened was that our clients asked us, okay, as you revise this, why don't you help us building it from scratch? So we started doing that. We do that now too, tokenization from scratch. But then what we realized is that by using our models, which is also the kind of models I use in my PhD, which is basically how we can replicate your protocol and the different agents that behave there in order to fine tune the parameters to achieve the macro goals you have. For example, I don't know, if you have a money market, probably you want a high amount of lenders and a high amount of borrowers, but not a high bad debt, for example. So how you can change the parameters of your protocol, structure, gas price, tokens mint, tokens burn, all of that foundation to incentivize certain behaviors from the people who use your protocol. That's the kind of models and analysis we do. We also do here. So we started doing risk management. So for those protocols that are also a DeFi project, we offer the audit and also a long-term relationship in which we have our dashboards with the metrics and the risk position they have and how they should change or update the parameters in order to reduce their risk and all the related stuff. And recently we were bought by a group of engineers from Argentina, which is called Lambda Class. It's a huge company of they do basically cryptography and CK technology development. So we are most more focused on research. Basically, we have our group of research, all PhD in mathematics, doing research on the topics more relevant in DeFi, such as MEV, AMMs, off-chain hooks, and all of that. So that's not so brief information about me. Well, that's basically how I started in the DeFi world and how Paul started.
Yeah, it's great to hear about you have worked for the Indian company as well. But as you told about you are working towards MEV and AMMs and all those things. And the MEV issue is still very relevant because if you see sandwich attacks and other attacks, that is pretty like it's pretty common right now. Even though say that it's MEV resistant, but they do happen still. And I just want to ask you a simple question: how did your early work, as you mentioned about quantitative analyst at Dunebit, influence the way you approach at POL Finance? Because someone who is a beginner that doesn't have a quantitative analyst experience like you, so how like you see and how you like approach when you like starting from scratch?
Hmm, that's a good question. As a mathematician, sometimes it's difficult to um, talk in terms that are not mathematics. Uh, an effort I should do in order to explain these ideas better. A ver, I would recommend reading the what the protocol is offering you. Thinking about the investment, right? First of all, let's assume you have some minimal personal finance information because that's always helps and it's not something you see in school, at least not here in Argentina. So know how to manage your own personal income, not having a debt, saving some money every month, the typical. And then I would recommend maybe reading the different kind of investment styles. I don't know, trading, fundamental analysis from the traditional finance. I mean, now in order to have a broader spectrum of what you can do. And then if you want to give it a try in crypto, I would recommend highly do your own research. I mean, your money costs you. I mean, you put effort to gain your money, so you have take into account all the information you can when you will buy an asset. You should be sure that it's safe. Your money is safe in a position, or at least be aware of the risk you are taking. And in order to be aware, I recommend doing research, reading what the protocol is about, or at least being sure that you are just playing the casino game.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, makes sense. So at POL Finance, you worked with mathematicians and economists. Can you share a time where your team solved a tough problem that showed you the beauty of Web3? What kind of things are possible with the power of maths and economics?
Yes, I can. Well, in fact, it's in one of our first clients, I realized the power of a token because it's difficult to understand a token apart from the meme idea and that's it. So, in terms of incentivizing people to do something, a token is a good idea, right? Because at the end, it's that is okay, how I can convince you to change your dollars for my token. In order to convince you, I have to give you more value, or at least that you think that this has more value than your dollars. So that's where the use cases, for example, enter into play because a lot of people and clients we have, the first thing they think of is, hey, can we have our token? Yes, you can, but if you don't have a use case, it doesn't make any sense because what is the value? except you are doing a meme coin, but we try to work with serious people. I'm not saying meme is not a serious stuff, but it's not an actual value, right? It's just narrative. So something I realized is that you can actually interfere or incentivize the people behavior by giving them some actual value in the form of a token. So, and actually these models we use in POL, which are called agent-based models, are used in real life to replicate, for example, policy making, how, for example, in COVID, how the virus spread among the different groups of people, so, and how the state or whatever centralized regulator could interfere to avoid the spread to go around your world. So how rules affect your ecosystem is something that you can actually model with these models using mathematics and economics. Economics in the terms of how a mathematical tool can be used in actual life, like in actual utility for people. So that's something I realized, how to apply mathematical models that in principle looks abstract to actual real life players.
And in terms of economic security, we see lots of scam coming up in the space. So how do you think economic security can work better from today and what need to be changed?
Well, yeah, right now I think we are in the middle, or I think now is something known, but a lot of VCs kind of buy the narrative and sell it as high as possible. So another VC buy it and all is a rug pull or an exit, cash exit. So I think they have to find more value at the end. They need to change their way of thinking about this world, not as a fast way to becoming millionaire by stuff ruining a lot of people, but trying to create actual real value, right? So first of all is our from the side of the user, and user have to be more cautious or strict in the way they where they put their money, right? So they have to do more research. They if the protocol doesn't have any white paper and I don't know, the founders are kind of mysterious people, cannot find a lot of uh, background of them. They don't have even an app or a landing page. All of that is like red flags. So I will say the user part should be more strict, more cautious about the protocols, and the VCs should be more, I don't know, ethic, more ethic. I don't know if the word, but yeah, not trying to uh, grab money from people, but to actually create value. But again, as Asian, incentivizing Asian, you just cannot depend on their good behavior. You should add some uh, incentives to reduce that, and one is not putting your money there, right? So I will research on you before giving you money, and that will eventually clean off all the things that doesn't have any value or foundation to change. I think there are a lot of serious people creating actual useful stuff.
Uh, like from your LinkedIn, I saw you worked at BeyondBit on different DeFi strategies to manage in liquidity pools. Can you share a fascinating thing you learned about DeFi pools there?
Yeah, yes, I can. Well, I found or I actually understood how AMM works. Not working per se in POL, but doing my research in the PhD, my PhD thesis. Well, something that kind of blew my mind was the idea of expressing price in terms of balance in a pool. So basically, an liquidity pool is a pool, like a pool, but with money. Let's assume there is only two kind of assets, I don't know, Ethereum and one stable coin. So the thing is, there is a mathematical formula to express the price in terms of the number of units of asset you have in your pool. And that's something awesome. In a natural way, you have the process of price discovery, which is how the new price forms without having the classical order book and in a geometrically beautiful way, which is basically the graphic of this formula. And when I finally understood how that worked, it was amazing because it was a different way. First of all, I never actually understood how the price formed. Like, okay, we know these ideas of supply and demand, but they are kind of abstract ideas, hard to measure, right? In a liquidity pool, you have exactly a tactile way of measuring that. So the amount of trade that enter is demand, and the amount of selling, for example, tokens is a supply, or how the people interact with the pool by reading, for example, the amount of tokens they sell or buy. You have a different way of updating the price and seeing how this demand and offer translate into this formula, mathematical formula. And that kind of blew my mind. The first things, like, for example, curve use different kind of combinations of formulas that are really technical from the mathematical point of view. But so if you want stable, if you have stable coins, you have some kind of pool. If you have volatile coins, you have another kind of formula that you can use. You can even combine them, and you also can, for example, buy or sell or provide liquidity, which is another um, action you can do in ranges of money, for example, in Uniswap B3. So there is a lot of possibilities there that they are not available in the traditional world, which is also something interesting. And for example, an application of Web3 in actual world, you can create a lot of complex strategies that are not possible in the traditional finance world if you have the knowledge to do that.
Pretty interesting. Yeah, we can never do that in traditional finance.
Exactly.
Yeah, as you talked about AMM, so as I talked, now we have Uniswap before with the hooks and everything as well. But for to maintain the AMM, there's a like X and Y, like token one is token Y, and they need to maintain that constant, right?
Yes,
Sometimes
exactly.
there is some quantity like liquidity for one token more and one token not, and that's how the liquidity pool adjusts itself with the help of other strategies. So yeah, it's like not possible in any kind of finance other than the three space. You get to see a lot more innovations in this space. That's what we love.
Just one last comment is more intuitive in my opinion. For example, if the amount of tokens in your pool increase, then the price decreases, which it makes logic because there is more supply of your item, so now it has a lower price, and that's intuitive, and you can see it in the balance in your pool.
That's how MEV bots make the most profits while front running and back running. It's like completely different. Yeah, it's good to see that. And that's how the slippage also adjusts itself and other things. And so I want to ask you the question. What one cool way that math helped you in Web3 that you are excited about that you actually use like in the various things that you did right now? Maybe in a project or idea you are excited about.
First of all, I really used to reading white papers, which is a lot of mathematical language and formula. So reading is something useful, and reading hard stuff makes everything easier in comparison. So that's something useful. By reading a lot of papers, technical papers, reading a white paper of a protocol is not that difficult. And the ideas behind it are not that complicated compared with abstract mathematics, for example. But as an example of what I did in my PhD, right? But as an example of tools or yeah, ways of thinking. Well, again, yes, something that I realized is in finance, we're told, or one of the basic hypotheses is that the market are efficient and all the information is in the price, and reading all the past history is doesn't make any sense because the price is the only thing that matters, and everything is arbitrage to this price. But that's not the reality. In real life, people are not rational. That's why you have bear markets, bull markets, black swans, crashes. That's because a lot of people who are not prepared enough enters in these markets and makes everything more volatile, right? So something I learned is that, okay, there are ways of replicating behavior of people using some kind of tools called differential equations, for example, which is some brief way of describing dynamic movement. Okay, I can describe the movement of a price with a simple formula. The problem with that is, again, you are implicitly assuming a lot of hypotheses and rational behavior and efficient things that are not the case in real life. Real life is not as mathematics theorems, in which, again, you assume this stuff, or for example, you assume that everything has, there are events that are random. And there is one family of randomness called normal distribution, which there is a result in mathematics that say you that if you have a lot, infinite many events, they will behave as a normal distribution. No matter what a normal distribution is, but the theorem says that. And a lot of results in mathematics use that, mostly in statistical branches. So, for example, you want to model a money market or a DeFi protocol, and in order to make your model realist or at least similar to actual real life, you have to use data, right? But how you treat that data is important, and you may use results of mathematics that use these hypotheses, like normal distribution, which are not true in real life. In real life happens extreme events called tail events, for example, extreme events, black swans that you don't think about, and that destroy your portfolio, your model, they destroy everything. So that's another thing. You can model your behavior with differential equations and things, but you have always to think what hypotheses are being broken in the real life. And this kind of model we use, agent-based models, don't assume anything. You just say, okay, this trader will behave this way, and you touch play and see what happens. You don't assume a thing, and that's more. You have more degrees of freedom in that way, and it's more realistic.
Augustin, if I, as a normal DeFi user, wanted to understand a protocol before being a user of it, what hypothesis I should keep in my mind before trying with my hard-earned saving into that protocol?
Yes. I don't know if I will call it a hypothesis, but maybe some good tips you can implement in order to be aware. Well, that depends on what are you looking for, right? But I will say I will repeat myself because I trust in. It is what I think. Again, you should first of all read the white paper or at least the page or at least having being able to explain in simple words what the protocol does. If you cannot do that, then you are not understanding where you are putting your money, right? Secondly, understanding from where the token is coming. Probably you are buying a token, I don't know. But if you are buying a token, understanding, okay, is this inflationary or is deflationary? So, for example, they will eventually mean a lot and a lot and a lot and more and more and more until the price is zero or not. They are rebuying or burning, which are good ideas generally. Then you could also try the app yourself. You have to try it, to use it, to see if it is interactive, if the user experience is good enough. I think user experience has to be like there now, because otherwise values and ideas is all we have, and that's not enough. I mean, if I cannot show something useful and friendly to my grandmother, I cannot expect she to use crypto, right? I mean, I cannot expect people to have our ideals and because of that use crypto apps. So user experience is something really, really important. So it has to be easy to use, intuitively. The launch page should look nice, I think, or at least have a land page. So again, like trying to think in Latin American ways that everybody is a scammer, except they prove contrary.
Okay.
Yeah, like it's also similar to this South Asian region as well.
Okay, yeah,
We extended to South
yeah.
Asia. Perfect.
Augustin, you mentioned your company works on finance solution in Web3. What's the biggest challenge getting project developers or user incentive on the same page, and how do you handle it?
Well, something difficult is when the client, for example, wants a token without having nothing to offer from the value. perspective. For example, they don't have a fee structure, or the token doesn't have any utility, and they want a token because it's kind of the custom here to have a token. So you have to basically explain to them, and mostly now that the real world asset is something in vogue, where we are everybody's talking about that. Well, that are people in the real world that don't actually maybe understand how a token works, how this works. So the first thing they want is token to incentivize people, but they don't have anything to do to offer, and they want to make it inflationary, for example. So I will say that trying to think hard, what are you offering? And that should be natural. You can't force that. So if you have a fee structure, well, maybe you can give a portion of your fee to people that hold the asset, for example. But if not, then you should just concentrate in solve the problem you are wanting to solve, right? It's probably you are seeing a pain point to users and you are offering a solution. So make that as clear as possible and don't force anything that is not naturally that that doesn't emerge naturally.
Do you think in the coming future one can always swap property in exchange of stables, or would it be right to consider that on-chain property as your liquidity or TVL of your protocol? What do you think about it?
Well, something that I like about blockchain is how everything is like blocks that you can combine in different ways. Everything is composable and can interact. So I think a blockchain should keep evolving towards a world in which no matter from one property is coming, you can use that in another blockchain without having to worry about if it is native based or if it's a roll up or if it's net one L two. So I have something useful I want to use with this asset, no matter from where both the property and the asset are coming from, right? So make it composable and interoperability in order to be everything to be composable, and things like that I think increase a lot of the experience of the user, right? Because you can increment the amount of possibilities, the combination of the things you can do and create. You can leverage on the creation of maybe Aditya create some food app, and I say, hey, I can use that to solve a problem that I have in my own app or my own DeFi protocol, and make everything like a building, like building an empire state, right?
Yeah, and the main core function about like for Web3 space comes down to giving powers in users' hands. So you should, yeah, and that's what we are talking about, like removing that centralization part and giving the users the power to decide what they should do or not. And it's pretty fascinating because it just keeps on growing as the time comes. So I just want to know, for example, Argentina is like a growing hub for developers, and DevConnect is also happening end of this year. So how does POL Finance get developers and the regional communities that you have, or maybe outside Latin America, excited about your work? Because that narrative building, or basically sharing about your work and your story, is very important. So, and what strategies that worked for you very well?
Well, that's interesting because we are becoming more like public people in Argentina. We don't really want a public figure, but we do position Paul as a competitor, serious competitor, and be leaders in Argentina. But in Argentina, something interesting that happens is that we have a lot of developers, we have talented people and cheap people, because basically we have inflation, we are poor, all that macro problems you imagine. So we have a lot of good technical professional people. But also what we have is, because we have a lot of inflation and these macro problems, we are early adopters of crypto because it's a way of hedging or protecting yourself against government using having bad policies, right? For example, here you have a lot of inflation, which is basically that your money, pesos, the Argentinian peso, lost its value every year, and
Yeah.
we have 100% inflation, like figures that doesn't make any sense. In any country, this is an hyperinflation. Here is just inflation. So that's why people even maybe they don't understand how how the consensus mechanism works, how the IP 1559 works, and how the fees are changed. No, they understand that if they buy Bitcoin or Ethereum, they will have more value than pesos, for example. So we are like a combination of technical people who are good because we are trying. It's like playing a game in hard mode from the beginning, and also we have common people that, in order to protect their capital, they buy crypto in a natural way. Let's say. So it's a good combination, and we are really excited to be part of this. We think Argentina is becoming a good place to develop crypto. As you mentioned, DevCon is happening here at the end of this year, November, I think. Also, there are some projects with the government involved using CK and to represent IDs for people. So it's something really cool.
Yeah, as you talked about, so what I think is the necessity part, because it's not a like option, it's like necessity now. So necessity is like a mother of all inventions. Basically, you try to even you don't know, you will come to other person that please teach me this about how we can do this. Even you see El Salvador, the government is pushing because there is a need for that, and we love to see the adoption will be there. It's still going on, and you see that AI and DeFi, they hold the biggest part in the sectors, right? And it's keep on growing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Agree.
Augustin, from your experience at BeyondBit, Cruise, and Pole Finance, what's one change in Web3 DeFi or how protocols are run that you think will matter in the next few years?
Well, now there is this idea of reorganizing trades off chain and then bringing one simple trade back on chain to reduce MEV or to improve, to reduce slippage or to improve. I mean, to improve how the user experience towards having the best price when you exchange assets. So again, from the DeFi perspective and from what the things I study, I found this pretty really interesting. Again, how because outside of off-chain OTCs and collaborations are not that transparent, so there are new interactions that you cannot see, that you should take into account, but that you cannot see because they are not transparent. So, well, what kind of risk this brings, what kind of improvement this brings, but I think this bringing things off chain will change DeFi a lot. And also the rollup world is the rollup infra is developing everything related to scalability fast enough. I mean, if I cannot transfer money as cheap and as fast as a regular bank, then why I would use blockchain?
Yeah, true. A week ago, I was reading this research paper.
Uh-huh.
It's written by Danning Sui from Flashbot. It mostly covers about cow swap, how it used solvers to leverage off-chain liquidity from centralized exchanges, or the other thing you mentioned like OTC. So do you think in the coming future people should rely more on that? Because cow swap works similar to what you have just said, like leveraging solvers, going off chain, leveraging off chain liquidity from centralized exchanges, and doing OTCs. So, do you think in the coming future, people should rely on solvers going off chain, or do you think we should still always stick to more decentralized solutions? User have to pay some like certain extra premium for using the services. What do you think? What's the future?
I think solvers are a good idea. They help a lot reducing slippage and bringing improving the user experience of traders. I'm not sure, to be honest. I mean, I think we should review everything, research everything, try all the combinations possible, and that markets should decide. Free markets should decide, right? So, but I like something interesting about mathematics is that sometimes you develop a proof of or a result or a proof of a result that at first it doesn't look applicable to anything, but later in the future, maybe something you use in the proof or some implications of the result has an actual application in real life. So maybe by developing solvers, we realize something that we didn't realize before, and we say, hey, this is a good idea to offer this kind of value to people. So researching, I think, is always a good idea. I'm not completely sure of if solver will be the final decision, but we should keep improving and being excellent to Nexus to offer us the best experience, reduce page, reduce MEV, making it as fast and as cheap as possible.
I have worked in the Web3 education side with Gear and Vara Network. So basically, I want to know about how can companies like POL Finance would work with different regions to make Web3 more open to everyone.
Well, we always try to build blogs explaining the kind of things we do, how we can improve the ecosystem, the kind of things a good protocol should implement in order to help the community. And again, from the point of view of Paul, we are just trying to improve the how things are done for both the communities, but also obviously for the protocol founders if they are not scammers, obviously, right? Let's assume they want to create actual value. So how they can align what their macro goals with the community and people goals, right? How can they better communicate in token, for example, or utility cases or apps cases, what they do in order to solve the pain problem for the final user. Comments, discuss, create events, all related to improve the ecosystem and make it useful and fast and all the things that we always discuss, cheap, secure. Obviously, security has to be a
Where do you see the demand of upcoming data analyst or data scientist in Web3 space and how one can become by studying mathematics and economics? Can you describe it in your own words, or like if you want to guide your younger brother to join the space as a data analyst, what would it be like?
So I think data analysts are one of the most useful things and people that mathematics have, right? Because it's basically how real life expresses itself in data. It expresses itself. So how do you measure real life? Using data. The problem with data is that there is a lot of noise, that the interpretation may change from one expert to another one. So a mathematician has some tools, but they don't always have the intuition that a data analyst have by reading data. So they can actually find a pattern, certain movements or certain groups of data that mean something. So they have a lot of intuition by using this data of real life, the same as physicists, for example, or economists. So they are really need in order to first understand the world and second know how the changes you are doing in your protocol have effect in real life again because you read on-chain data and you translate that to actionable steps. So I highly recommend having some knowledge of data analysis, data science, statistical methods.
And according to you, like you have been doing research in Web3 about data or the economics. So currently, which ecosystem you see as the fast moving one?
Well, I think Ethereum. Obviously, my discussion is between Ethereum and Solana. I'm more pro Ethereum, but again, because I know for firsthand that Argentina is becoming a huge player inside. There are a lot of huge projects related to IDs and similar things in Asia. So I think Ethereum and when they finalize in incorporating rollups and CK proof, they can become the blockchain, the only blockchain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, what do you think about other ecosystems like Polkadot, Cosmos, like these ecosystems?
Yes, again, I encourage people and all protocols to develop. I personally, we worked with people in projects in Cosmos. I liked it, how they manage the interoperability. I really like
IBC,
Cosmos. Yes,
IBC, and other things.
exactly, IBC. We work with the EVMs, which is the EVM of Cosmos, basically. But again, I think that if all the blockchains don't collaborate each other, they are like fragmenting liquidity, right? Fragmenting the user uh, um, power, basically. Again, you should be able to use one app no matter the blockchain. We need to interconnect everything, and everything should be composable, and you shouldn't have to understand how the protocol or the blockchain works in order to use the app, right? So there are hundreds of blockchains that are uh, reducing user experience, because if you need to have a PhD to understand blockchain, then nobody will use that.
Right.
But I encourage researching always. So as long they bring new actual value, they have my vote.
As
Hmm.
well.
Yeah. To wrap up, Augustin, like what's one simple tip for someone curious about Web3, maybe a student or researcher to start exploring and have fun with it from a general user perspective?
You can create whatever you want, basically for free. Absolutely everything. If you want a game idea or something that exists in Web 2 and you want to make it decentralized in order to not depend on a centralized server, you can do it. There are a lot of chains of protocols to create your own token in a few seconds. They offer you, if you can, if you have a little understanding of how a smart contract works, which is not that hard, you can create everything. So it's a good place to develop and use your creativity, right? You can create and solve people's problem for free. And maybe even if you are success, make some money if that's what you want.
Yeah,
But mostly it's a cool free place to create value or create whatever you want. I mean, you can start creating something, and eventually you will find or develop the intuition to see where is what you want to create.
absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Augustin, for such a great chat and Aditya for awesome questions. Yeah, really appreciate you coming here, Augustin, giving your time, telling us about data, research, finance. Very thought-provoking conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Churchits. Thank you, Aditya, again for having me here. It was a huge pleasure.
Because I also learned a lot of things from you, and it's a great place to be. And maybe we can meet in Def Connect in Argentina for sure.
Please come. We have the one of the best food in the world.